All right, hello everybody. This is lecture number 4, in which we are going to discuss the word advice, other different meanings for the same word advice in different contexts. Now still on page 35, this sentence, which is sentence number 6. Okay, the right advice is not to seek advice or give advice. People will listen, then do exactly what they want. إن أفضل النصح هو عدم طلب النصح أو تقديمه. فالناس قد تصغي إليه ثم لا تفعل إلا ما تريده. Okay, so of course we have to remember that we have advice as the noun and advise as the verb. Okay, if we want to seek the plural, we would say pieces of advice or a piece of advice, the singular and the plural. Not advices. Of course, this is the plural and this is the singular. Okay, now back to our work. So the right advice is not to seek advice or give advice. The expression to seek advice means طلب النصح أو تقديمه, to give. Okay, or it could be also translated as عليك بألا تطلب المشورة وألا تقدمها لأحد إذ يصغي الإنسان إليها ثم يفعل ما يشاء. لا تطلب رأي أحد ولا تشر على أحد برأي، فالناس تسمع ولا تفعل إلا ما تريد. الرأي ألا تطلب الرأي أو تبديه فلا أحد يعيه. Of course, all of these translations are okay. And remember that our course is at sight and consecutive. So again, remember, whenever you translate something, you have to be aware that you give the main idea. This is very much important, and this is what you are required to do in this course. Okay. It was an ill-advised business venture from the word go, as the board had miscalculated the effect of the weakening markets. Okay, this is a nice word, which is ill-advised. Let's see the meaning. كان المشروع التجاري قائما على سوء التدبير منذ البداية، إذ أخطأ مجلس الإدارة في حساب الآثار المترتبة على ضعف القوة الشرائية في السوق. Okay, an ill-advised business. Ill-advised means simply سوء التدبير أو سوء التقدير. Okay? All right, so this is another important word for advice. The wait-and-see policy of the government proved to be well advised. Okay, so that is the opposite of it. Well advised. Okay. The subsequent changes in the situation showed that any action then would have been disastrous. اتضحت الحكمة well advised. حكمة، حسن تقدير أو تدبير للأمور. Okay, اتضحت الحكمة من سياسة التريث. Okay, this is a very nice expression to wait and see policy. Okay. Well advised is the opposite. Wait and see policy. سياسة التريث أو التروي. It's a very nice expression that you have to remember. Okay? Okay, again. The wait and see policy of the government proved to be well advised. The subsequent changes in the situation showed that any action then would have been disastrous. Okay? Alright. إذا أثبتت التطورات اللاحقة أن أي خطوة آنذاك كانت ستفضي إلى كارثة. Okay, now let's see this. Her advised reply was negative, for she had to reject a task requiring such insensitivity to human sufferings. قالت أنها قد انتهت بعد التروي إلى الرفض. Her advised reply رد بعد دراسة وتروي. Okay? was negative. قالت إنها قد انتهت بعد التروي إلى الرفض, for she had to reject a task requiring such an insensitivity to human sufferings. وأنها لا تستطيع قبول عمل يتضمن مثل تلك اللامبالاة بالمعاناة البشرية. So again, another word which is important to know, insensitivity. لا مبالاة أو انعدام الإحساس. Okay? Okay, this sentence, forget about it. This coming sentence. He said he admired her tough moral fiber. Okay, we don't need this sentence. We don't, delete this one. You don't study it. Another meaning. So this sentence, which is in the book, it's number 10. Forget about sentence number 10, okay? Yes, the coming one is very, very important. Please advise us when the goods are dispatched. Advise us of the dispatch of goods. نرجو اختارنا بإرسال البضائع. So to advise someone, it simply does not mean to give advice. يسدي النصح, or also, so the word advise as a verb, the verb advise could either mean to give advice or to inform about something. يخطر أو يبلغ. Okay? Okay. So these are the different meanings of advice. Let me review with them again. In the previous lecture, we discussed some of the words of advice. Okay. Again, let's remember this. Advice. Okay, number 1, نصيحة. Okay, number 2, instructions. إرشادات. Number 3, advisor, the word advisor, مستشار, and go back to the different meanings of مستشار. Number 4, advised, it means تروي وتريث. 5 ill-advised سوء تدبير أو تقدير للأمور. well-advised حسن تقدير أو تدبير للأمور. حكمة. And finally the verb to advise, either as we said نصيحة or يخطر أو يبلغ. Okay, now let's try and work on the exercise on page 37. Okay. Now this exercise in the book, it's on page 37. Okay, translate quickly into Arabic. Okay, now sentence number 1. May I seek your advice on this matter? And remember, this is a question because some people don't translate them as questions. May I seek your advice on this matter? Exercise. هل يمكنك إسدائي النصح بخصوص هذا الأمر؟ Okay, sentence number 2. Have you recently met any presidential advisors? And you remember that we talked about this in the previous lecture. Okay, have you recently met? هل سبق لك أن التقيت بأي من المستشارين الرئاسيين؟ Okay, it's another question, remember. Yes. The bank sent a note advising me to settle my overdrawn account. Okay. The bank sent me a note advising me to settle my overdrawn account. لقد أرسل لي البنك. Note here means اختارا لإبلاغي بتسوية حسابي المدين. Okay, so note here means اختار. Okay, settle my account, تسوية الحساب. Okay. Okay. Is it advisable to go out when it is so cold? Now the word here advisable. Advisable here means هل من المقبول أو هل من الحكمة الخروج في مثل هذا الجو أو الطقس البارد. أوكي. هل من المقبول أو من الحكمة الخروج في هذا الجو البارد؟ So again advisable. It's very important to know this word advisable. من الحكمة. Okay. All right. This is the end of this one. Okay. Actually, I'd like to discuss with you something. So far, we have finished discussing the word advice. Okay. Something else that I'd like to do with you for change of activity is discussing the idea of how to translate consecutively. Now, so far in these units, we have been translating the text and the exercises in an at-sight way. Now, one part which is very important to remember in the exam, because this is an important part in the exam, is how to translate a text consecutively. That is, you listen and you try to produce it into Arabic. Okay. Now, first, you will have a passage, either, now in consecutive translation, either you listen or you read. Okay, read the passage, read the first paragraph only, then cover it with a piece of paper. Record your translation on tape, and finally remove the paper and play recording, then try to write your translation. My advice to you, in order to be experts in this field, to train yourselves, that you have to listen a lot to the news on TV. Listen to texts on TV or radio. Actually, there aren't really special sites for this. You can just listen to the news and try to listen to what they say and try to translate it at the same time. So listen carefully to text carefully. Try to get the main idea or ideas. Try to render, that is, translate them into Arabic. Actually, you'll find difficulty at the beginning, but if you try to train yourself on doing this, every time you practice it, you will find it very easy. Okay? All right. Now let's see an example of a text that we are going to do together. Translate the following text into Arabic. Okay. Scientist raises new mobile phone fears. Okay. Okay, now let's have a look at this. London, Reuters. Yes, I'd like you to remember this. In news, in pieces of news text taken from newspapers, you must have the place of the news. For instance, we have here London. Okay, so it's city or place from the news, from which was taken. And then you have news agency. Of course, there are very much well-known ones like Reuters, for instance. AP, which is the Associated Press. AFP, Agence Française de Presse, وكالة الأنباء الفرنسية، Associated Press. You have MENA, Middle East News Agency، وكالة أنباء الشرق الأوسط. Okay, all of these are abbreviations or acronyms for news agencies. You have to be aware of them. Okay. 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 Now let's have a look at this. Children who use mobile phones risk suffering memory loss, sleeping disorders, and headaches, according to a research published in a medical journal. Okay, in a British medical journal. Okay, when you start doing this, reading a text or listening to a text, try to read it or listen to it as a comprehension passage, because this will make things easy for you. Okay, children who use Alright, children who use mobile phones risk suffering memory loss, sleeping disorders, and headaches, according to a research published in a British medical journal. Okay, something I'd like you to remember. Okay, so it talks about the disadvantages of using mobiles on children. Okay, just before doing this, I'd like to attract your attention to the fact that okay, mobile phones. Okay, how are we going to translate mobile phones? Okay, in our country, in Egypt, and in some other countries, we call them أجهزة التليفون المحمول or أجهزة الجوال or النقال. Okay, while we are translating, we have to be aware of whom we are addressing, who are our audience. If I'm talking to an audience in Egypt, so it's different from talking, for instance, Gawal is used more in Gulf area countries. Okay, An-Naqal in other countries like in or maybe North Africa or something, okay? So be aware of the differences, not even, now we are discussing translation from English into Arabic, we're talking about two different cultures, the English culture and the Arab culture, okay? Now, even inside the same culture there are differences, like the differences between Egypt, the Gulf area, the North Africa area, the South, okay? Okay. Sleeping, okay, according to a research published in a British medical journal. Okay, now let's see the word journal. What does it really mean? Now, journal, it simply means a specific publication. Especially for research or educational reasons. Okay, so it would mean جريدة متخصصة في مجال ما. Okay, it's different from newsletter. Newsletter means a publication, نشرة, a publication about the activities or achievements of a certain institution. Okay, a periodical, it means دورية, a publication released at specific times, for instance, monthly, every 3 or 6 or months or annually, about the latest inventions or achievements or inventions in a scientific field. Okay, so the different words: journal, newsletter, periodical. Okay, journal, a specific publication for, especially for research or education reasons. Okay, for instance, a journal about medicine, a journal about geology, a journal. Okay, a newsletter, this is a publication about the activities or achievements of a certain institution. Okay, for instance, a famous company would write every now and then a newsletter, would release a newsletter discussing its latest achievements, the projects they are acting on, etc. A periodical, it's a publication released at specific times, at a monthly rate, or every 3 or 6 months, or even annually, about the latest achievements or inventions in a scientific field. So beware of the different meanings of what does journal and newsletter and periodical mean. Of course, this is completely different from a newspaper or a magazine. Okay? For instance, if we are talking about specialized or special newsletters, like for instance, newspapers, let's say, discussing economic situations, for instance. Okay, the news about the actors and the artists, etc. Okay. Okay. So children who use mobile phones risk suffering memory loss, sleeping disorders, and headaches, according to a research published in a British medical journal. Okay. Now let's do the translation. يعاني الأطفال الذين يستخدمون أجهزة الهاتف المحمول أوكي من مخاطر فقدان الذاكرة memory loss واضطرابات النوم والصداع. هذا ما ورد في بحث published in a British medical journal. ورد نشر في جريدة طبية بريطانية. Okay. Remember the idea that in translating from English into Arabic يعاني الأطفال الذين يستخدمون أجهزة الهاتف المحمول من مخاطر فقدان الذاكرة واضطرابات النوم والصداع. هذا ما ورد في بحث نشر في جريدة طبية بريطانية. Remember the rule, this rule on translating from English into Arabic. Okay, start with a verbal sentence. Okay, okay, so whenever we translate from English into Arabic, we have to remember this fact that in most cases you have to translate start the sentence with a verb, a verbal sentence. Of course, sometimes you will have to use a nominal sentence أو جملة اسمية, but this is in specific cases. Okay, now let me remind you of this. Okay, in a sentence like, which starts with there, how am I going to translate there? Okay, there is a book on the table. Okay, there is a book on the table. Of course, the first thing that you have to remember is there, just before, never use هناك or يوجد. It's totally wrong to use هناك أو يوجد. So you cannot say in this sentence, there is a book on the table, هناك كتاب، هناك أو يوجد كتاب على المنضدة. This is totally wrong. Okay, you would better say على المنضدة كتاب. Now why is that? What kind of rule is this? Now this is a nominal sentence. جملة اسمية. Okay. In Arabic we know the rule that if we have الاسم، إذا كان عندنا في اللغة العربية إذا كان عندنا الاسم نكرة والخبر شبه جملة، يبقى في الحالة دي، في هذه الحالة يجب تقديم الخبر على المبتدأ. Okay. So remember this. Okay. Something else to translate there. There are demonstrations in the city. Okay, there are demonstrations in the city. Of course, you cannot say هناك مظاهرات. وقعت مظاهرات في المدينة. Which is a verbal sentence in this case. Okay? So, again, go back to the rule that on translating from English into Arabic, start with a verbal sentence in most cases. Sometimes you will need a nominal sentence, but this is not the case. Okay? All right. And remember, we have here the different meanings or the different ways of translating the word there. Never use يوجد أو هناك, but use according to the meaning of the sentence. What really decides which one to use, is it the nominal sentence or the verbal sentence, is the meaning of the sentence. Okay? And remember all the time the word context. Physicist Dr. Gerard Hyland raised new fears over radiation caused by mobile phones and said under 18-year-old who said that youth, actually it's, and said that children under 18 years old who represent a quarter of Britain's 25 million mobile phone users were more vulnerable because their immune system were less robust. Okay, so this part is actually a bit troublesome. Okay, physicist Dr. Gerard Hyland raised new fears over radiation caused by mobile phones and said that children under 18 years old who represent a quarter of Britain's 25 million mobile phone users were more vulnerable because their immune system were less robust. Okay, now before we go on translating this, now what is the main idea? That children who are under 18, because their immune systems are not grown enough, so they are more likely to be suffering from the radiation caused by mobiles. Okay, now let me, more vulnerable, just give you the meaning of the difficult words. more vulnerable, قابل أو عرضة للتلف أو للعطب أو للإصابة. Okay, less robust, it's one word by the way. Okay, robust itself means قوي, سليم, صحيح. Okay, all right, immune system, of course الجهاز المناعي, the immune system. Okay, all right, now let's try and translate this together. Okay, Physicist Dr. Gerard Hyland raised new fears over radiation caused by mobile phones. Okay, now while we are working, if we have such a long sentence, we have to think of something which is division of ideas. It's a very long sentence. So where can we divide the ideas and stop at somewhere and start somewhere else? Now the first idea is physicist Dr. Gerard Hyland raised new fears over radiation caused by mobile phones. Okay, so this is the first idea. And said, so and is a marker for the end of an idea and start of another one. Okay, now let's do this. أثار, again verbal sentence, or أعرب Dr. Gerard Hyland عن مخاوفه. وأثار أو أعرب دكتور جيرارد هايلاند عن مخاوفه بسبب الإشعاع. Gerard Hyland raised new fears, to raise new fears عن مخاوفه. Okay, عن مخاوف جديدة, new fears. He raised new fears over radiation. أثار أو أعرب دكتور جيرارد هايلاند عن مخاوف جديدة بسبب الإشعاع caused by mobile phones. الناتج or الناجم عن أجهزة التليفون المحمول. Okay, full stop. The end of an idea. And said children under 18 years old who represent a quarter of Britain's 25 million mobile phone users were more vulnerable because their immune system were less robust. I'll give it to you back again. Okay. And said that children under 18 years old who represent a quarter of Britain's 25 million mobile phone users. Okay. Of course الجملة اللي هي بين التو commas دي بنسميها parenthetical sentence. parenthetical sentence ايه الفايدة بتاعتها؟ ان هي to give us extra information. Okay. Let me just remind you of this. Parenthetical sentence, جملة اعتراضية. Okay, it gives extra information. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's see the translation. وأضاف قائلا بأن and said that الأطفال أقل من 18 عاماً. Children who are under 18 years old, أقل من 18. And in a minute I'll discuss with you numbers. والذين يمثلون الجملة الاعتراضية بقى who represent ربع who represent a quarter of Britain's 25 mobile phone users. Okay. ربع عدد مستخدمي الهاتف المحمول في بريطانيا والبالغ عددهم 25 مليون مشترك، 25 مليون مشترك. اوكي. were more vulnerable because their immune system were less robust. اوكي. هم أكثر عرضة للإصابة بسبب عدم اكتمال نمو أجهزتهم المناعية. Okay. So وأضاف قائلا I'll go back to the original. Gerard Hyland raised new fears over radiation caused by mobile phones and said that children under 18 years old, who represent a quarter of Britain's 25 million mobile phone users, were more vulnerable because their immune system were less robust. Now let's see the translation again. وأضاف قائلا بأن الأطفال أقل من 18 عاما والذين يمثلون ربع عدد مستخدمي الهاتف المحمول في بريطانيا والبالغ عددهم 25 مليون مشترك هم أكثر عرضة للإصابة بسبب عدم اكتمال نمو أجهزتهم المناعية. Okay, the next part is radiation is known to affect the brain rhythms and children are particularly vulnerable. Okay, brain rhythms. اتزان المخ أو ترددات المخ. Okay. Okay. Radiation is known to affect the brain rhythms and children are particularly vulnerable, Hyland said. كما صرح دكتور هايلاند بأنه من المعروف أن الإشعاع يؤثر على ترددات المخ وأن الأطفال أكثر عرضة لها، وأن الأطفال على وجه الخصوص أكثر عرضة لها. أوكي؟ Okay. The effect of microwaves from a mobile phone is a bit like interference on a radio. It has an impact on the stability of cells in the body. The main effects are neurological, causing headaches, memory loss, and also sleeping disorders, he added. Okay. بالإضافة إلى ذلك قال دكتور هايلاند بأن تأثير الموجات الكهربية اللي هي مايكروويفز الصادرة عن التليفون المحمول تشبه إلى حد ما التشويش على جهاز الراديو، كما أن لها تأثيرا على ثبات أو استقرار الخلايا في الجسم، وتتركز تلك التأثيرات في كونها عصبية مسببة للصداع وفقدان الذاكرة واضطرابات النوم. Okay? Microwaves, just to remember it. الموجات الكهربية. Okay? So whenever you come across a text that is that you have to translate consecutively, you have to read it first as a comprehension passage, try to understand it well in order and grasp the main idea. Where is the main idea? And then go on translating. Again, my advice to you is that you try to practice every day, even for just 10 minutes, to listen to the news on TV. And if you need help, you can just look at the manchettes, the headlines under the screen. Okay, just to compare what you have listened to what is being written. Try to do this because this would be very much helpful to you in the exam. Thank you. This is the end of our lecture, and thank you very much.